Welcome back to Hoops HD,
Woohoo!
everybody. It is Monday, March 6th. It is championship week. It's like 8 days into championship week, but this is not a video notebook. This is our bracket rundown show, regular season finale, season finale of bracket rundown show, I guess. Uh, does that make you
Yeah,
sad, Griggs?
it does.
Uh, I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. Let me get back to the view here. We got John
Why
Slika,
can't we
David
do any more?
John Slika, David Griggs up here, Joey Fortson, and David Dorman down below because uh, towards the end of the week, we're going to be doing our mock committee, which we'll be updating everyone on daily. And on Sunday, there's the actual tournament selection show comes out. So if we do one of these next Monday, Griggs, I don't know how that works. I guess we
Yeah,
get every team
okay.
right though.
Yeah.
But
We
um,
don't try to match the committee, Chad. We just
okay.
have a show saying how they got it wrong.
Well, we're actually
Yeah,
going to
we
do one of
do.
those. We're going to do one of those shows actually next Monday. So, but what we did was I asked all five of us, along with several of our other colleagues who are not on right now, may not be able to make it tonight, including Mike Cha, John Teitel, Brian Black, Matt Sikowski. All of us submitted our list of our top 55 teams of the nation, regardless of conference. I cross-country scored those lists, came up with a consensus bracket, bracketed it up, and we're going to be revealing that bracket Selection Sunday style here.
All right, yeah.
Um,
Well,
did
why
we?
did I still don't understand why you don't just use my seed list. It's the best one.
I actually
I'm the
think
smartest.
I actually didn't even
That's what
count
we
your
should
seed
be.
list. It was so awful.
It was perfect.
Uh, I figured we'd start with a like we. Ooh, hold on. Are we still there, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, we're
Okay.
here.
Still here.
Hitting
Great job, Chad.
hitting end meeting instead of screen share is a bad idea normally, but I figured we'd start with a blind resume. We love to do blind resumes. Griggs, you do not get out of the puppet bunker for guessing this one. This is a real blind resume, and
Ooh, that's close.
the question is left or right, who's better, or are they both garbage? Joby, let me start with you. You're shaking your head, so
They're
I'm
both
gonna.
garbage, given where their J and G is, but they're right on the edge. Oh my gosh, this is close. I'm having. I guess there's less bad on the right, but yeah, there's less bad. That's a nice road win at number 5, though. On the left.
Mhm.
Real those that's not just a good win. That is an outstanding win. That yeah, I'll go with. It's very tight. I mean, that this is a toss up of toss ups. I'll go with the left, but you could convince me once the names are revealed to go the other way.
Uh, Slika, do you agree with him going left?
I can safely say none of these teams are Maryland right here. There's not enough road losses in
Yeah.
the profile right here. Of course, the one
Those
thing
are
I don't like
crappy
about the
strength of
profile on the
schedule.
left is there's a few too many tier 3 losses right here, albeit with a couple of very good road wins right here.
I'll tell you. Let me throw it over to John Titel is joining us as he takes a look at our blind resumes. We're about to get going. I'll throw it over to Dorman though for a quick guess. Who are these teams, left and right? If you know.
I'm kind of stumped by who
Okay.
they are. I
They're
thought
both
maybe
they're in the same conference because there's enough nets that overlap, and so I know one of them, Chad, but I don't know. It could be any of 4 teams.
Mhm.
They're Big
I
Ten
thought
teams.
maybe NC State was one of them, but
The Big Ten teams. Which two Big Ten teams, Joey? Take a shot at it.
Well, Rutgers is one of them because you
Yeah.
put them up.
Penn State.
It's
Penn
where's the
State.
net? It's not a net of 80, so it's not Wisconsin. It would be Penn State.
It
Yes.
is Rutgers and Penn State. In fact,
Okay.
the left that you like barely better than Penn State was Rutgers, and
The Purdue win, of course. That's the reason.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
yeah. But I think this shows how far Rutgers has fallen and how high Penn State has risen in just the last week.
They're both in the field. I think they're both in the field.
They're both they're
Oh.
we'll be
First
discussing them
4.
tonight. I'm not going to guarantee you that they're going to be here or down here and the teams out at this point. But let's go ahead and start revealing our consensus field. And with both Alabama and Kansas losing in the past week, Houston did not lose, and our number 1 overall team, Titel, is still the Alabama Crimson Tide.
I mean, I'm trying to get Houston in there, Chad. I don't know what more they need to do. Obviously, they almost lost at Memphis yesterday, but they hung on to win. Top 6 in offensive efficiency, top 6 in defensive efficiency. I know they don't have the quad one of all the other power conference teams, but they also don't have any of the tons of losses of the power conference teams.
Yeah, so I mean, I actually, Griggs, I made an argument for Houston number one overall 2 weeks ago that you kind of liked. Then I dropped them out. I did have Houston number one overall, but I was one of, I think, only two people that did.
I think I had him second. I mean, one of the things, it's just when they're this close, you can't ignore that the head to head. And not only was it a head to head, it was a true road win for Alabama. So every time I'm trying to decide which side of the coin to go with, that's sort of the deal breaker with me. I mean, I don't disregard anything Tytel just said about Houston. I think they're really good. If filling out an NCAA tournament bracket, I kind of like how they're playing now more than I like how Alabama's been playing, and I might pick them to win it all. But when evaluating the season as a whole, I just like Alabama a little bit more because of one reason. I mean, other than that, if they hadn't even played, I'd probably go with Houston, but they did play. They played at Houston, and Alabama won.
Well, would it surprise you then, Dorman, that number two overall ended up not being Houston, but ended up being Kansas still?
It wouldn't surprise me. I had Houston too, but I had Kansas one. The loss at Texas didn't really bother me because Texas was at home. It was senior day. Kansas had already clinched the conference and the number one seed. I just thought the reason for Kansas to be on the court was just much less than Texas, and I think it showed. It just didn't look like Kansas the last month that we had been watching. So I think Texas had all the reason and momentum to win. And Houston, I'm with you guys. I think Houston, if they're one, if they're two, I'm good with either, but they are hot and they are playing well. And the people are saying, oh, they play bad. Memphis played well at home. Memphis is a good team. I think Memphis will be in our field later tonight. I'd be stunned if they weren't. Houston is red hot.
Yeah, Joby, what about this Houston team? Let me get your thoughts on them. They were number three overall, by the way.
They were. Dorman and I are in agreement. I had Kansas 1, Houston 2. So, but it's a top three. I mean, I assume, Chad, when you did the cross country scoring, that these three were so far ahead of number 4.
And I will put it down here. I have a few different tiebreakers I do. It was a dead tie between Kansas and Houston at the first ballot. I had to go to a secondary ballot to get the slight edge to Kansas over Houston. So
Yeah,
it was,
Houston,
that's how close it was.
I have no qualms. Had Houston been the one overall, had Houston, no arguments, period. I love the way Houston plays. Their defense is outstanding. They have enough offense to do it and win the whole darn thing if it gets there. And as pointed out, Alabama's not playing quite as well as they used to. And that's why Alabama was 3 for me, whereas they might have been 1 just a mere 2 weeks ago. I can't disagree with what we've done so far.
Yeah, this was razor thin between these three, and I could see it going any way a week from now, or 6 days from now when the committee comes out. But Griggs, number 4 overall, this was definitely a step down, but Purdue did hang on there for the number 4 overall 1 seed.
I guess I'm not that surprised, although they're not who I have. I really like this UCLA team. I just don't think Purdue has been playing like a 1 seed for the last several weeks. I mean, it's not outrageous that they're a 1, but I didn't even have them as 5th or 6th.
I guess, Sliko, when I look at Purdue, though, it's that neutral court win over Gonzaga and the neutral court wins over West Virginia, which are really better than anything UCLA did on the road. I mean, they won at Maryland, which is a very tough place to win, but that's all UCLA really did of significant note away from home, even though they have a lot of road wins.
And keep in mind, UCLA was the only team that actually won at Maryland this season right here. My personal feeling is I had UCLA at number 5 for now. However, if they get the double and Purdue loses in the Big Ten tournament, then I would have UCLA as my final number 1 seed right here. Of course, we would also have to put UCLA in Denver to make the locations work, because obviously you can't have all the number 1 seeds at 4 Thursday sites, and they are not going to move UCLA down just for
we already
purposes.
We already confirmed that if all 4 1 seed lines are Thursday, Saturday sites, one of them the 4th 1 seed is going to have to be moved to a Friday, Sunday site. Joby, you had some comment here?
Yeah, no, and I was wanting from John Titel. We've seen a gap, still a pretty decent gap, still exist on bracket matrix among the experts like Titel guessing Purdue well ahead of UCLA. Do you think that's a little group thing? I'm surprised it's not closer. Like Chad says, razor thin among us. I personally have UCLA ahead of it. Do you see it being stagnated on the bracket matrix and may change in real life? Or do you think that no, the committee is looking very seriously at Purdue more than UCLA, as evidenced by a lot of very smart people on bracket matrix?
Man, that's a long question, Joby, but I'll give it a shot. I think it is partially groupthink. I'll give you that. I think that it's also a lot of things like are going to get determined the week ahead in terms of, I think UCLA is going to win the Pac-12. And if that means wins over the Trojans and the Wildcats, which I don't think will happen because I think they're the 2-3 seeds, but at least one of them, then I think that is certainly a notch in their belt. And if Purdue wins the Big Ten, they're going to have a lot of notches in their belt, but I don't think they're going to win the Big Ten tourney because I don't think one seeds have fared too well in the past.
Okay, the number 5 overall team, no surprise it was UCLA. We've just discussed them. But Dorman, let me go back to you here as number 6 overall team, and that was Texas getting number 6 overall. That they had been number 5 overall for us not that long ago.
I think that's where I had them. I think that's
Yeah.
exactly where they belong. I think they're definitely behind the 5 we just discussed. And I think they're ahead of the next few names you're about to call by a significant, not a but by a little margin. I think they're exactly where they should be here at the 6th slot.
Yeah, but if they win the Big 12 tournament, Griggs, is there a shot at a one line? It should Purdue slip up and should UCLA slip up?
Yeah, I think so, because what you're talking about in winning the Big 12 tournament, which the brackets, like all the other
Here it is.
31 of
Here
them,
it
are
is,
right
in
up
fact.
there.
Yep.
Look at their path. You're talking about most likely beating Oklahoma State on a neutral floor, who's bubble-ish, and then you're talking about beating K-State, who I bet is a protected seed, and then you're talking about 3 really big wins away from home against teams that are ahead of them. In some cases, especially if it ends up being Kansas. I think they go up to the 1 line if they win this tournament.
Okay.
Over
Titel,
Purdue, certainly.
number 7 overall, another Big 12 team. Here's Baylor coming in the East region there.
Yeah, I think they've been fading a little bit down the stretch, but certainly can't ding them too much because they're playing in the conference that is the best we've ever seen in our lives. I think that there's so many good Big 12 teams that I guarantee we're going to see a lot of them in the very near future. Texas deservedly, when you beat Kansas, deserves to be up there. But I think Baylor has 15-9 against the board. I mean, mic drop.
Yeah. I just love how this Baylor team's been playing. So there you go.
The guard play is fantastic.
It's crazy that they started off 0-3 in conference play. Remember, we thought that they were turning into everybody's token quality win back in January. I think Stalika had mentioned that, and he was right.
Joby, number 8 overall. How about Marquette jumping up to the 2 line?
Committee. Good job, committee.
So Matt got like 10 votes.
He did vote.
I have Marquette 9. What's funny is it's a rivalry between Hoops HDers because I had Arizona 8. I have 0 complaints with Marquette being here because they did win the Big East regular season title and won it handily. I want to see the double. I do want to see the double because the Big East, I don't think they fully have the resume. They don't have the mistakes that Arizona has, but I think Arizona's top is better. But if Marquette goes through, wins the Big East tournament, even if the path is Butler, Providence, Georgetown, I think that's enough.
I guarantee it won't be Georgetown.
Yeah, but you get
maybe Seton Hall. Maybe Seton Hall.
Even if they don't pile up the Q1 wins. In other words, I think Marquette gets to the 2 line over an Arizona that doesn't win the Pac-12 tournament at that point, or over, if Texas or Baylor flames out in the first round of the Big 12 tournament. There's a pathway. Marquette, I do believe, controls their own destiny for a 2 seed, and they very well may have it right now. But I don't think they do The last point I'll make on this is because the selection committee on the pre-selection show in February underseeded them for what I think us and a lot of people do. I think that underseeding still exists. Thus, I think they're at the 3 right now with a chance to.
Joby, I do have to correct you on something. Maybe not correct, but point something out. The selection committee did their mock draft before we started doing ours, and they didn't have all the information that we are providing them quite yet.
Dorman, number 9 overall was not Arizona. It was actually Kansas State, our next Big 12 team.
Really, that surprises me a little. But I get it. It's the Big 12, and they're getting credit for all these wins. And as Mr. Titel would say, I can't really veto it. I did have Arizona ahead of them. They do have the UCLA win. They do have the Tennessee win. But as far as conference play goes, Kansas State blows Arizona's conference play away. But I mean, still, the Indiana win, the Creighton, San Diego State. I have Arizona ahead of Kansas State today, but it is close.
I agree with this selection. I did want to ask a question to our bracket or our committee guessing experts. They always talk about how there's a big emphasis on out of conference play, and you know, K-State's could have been better. One of the things I looked at, like when you look at Kansas, because I was just curious, like, is the Big 12 just sort of eating on itself, or did they do a lot out of conference? And when you factor it up, I think I averaged it out that that the average was about 3 wins against the board for the whole league, which makes sense. That's why it's so high. But K-State really not with any. Is that potentially going to hurt them unless you consider Nevada a really big win?
Joby, go ahead.
No, I don't think it will, precisely because of what the first part of what you mentioned is. They're beating teams that did do it out of conference. You know, Baylor has the UCLA win. Yeah, just down the line. Plus, it's not just, a lot of the complaints are things get calcified because of the early out of conference schedule. Remember, the Big 12 and SEC played a later challenge that the Big 12, for the most part, was victorious on. You know, they had more, they definitely won the battle, especially when you consider their last place team whipped the heck out of the team we already have on the one line from the SEC. So I think the Big 12's strength certainly helps Kansas. If everybody had done what Kansas State did and played patsies and cream puffs, well, the nets wouldn't be so high, you know, for the Big 12.
Salika, number 10 overall. There's Arizona. No surprise, I don't think.
This was probably expected after they finished runner-up in the Pac-12, thanks to their loss at UCLA on Saturday right here. Of course, I think what also hurts Arizona is they also lose out on the West region because UCLA gets first dibs. Arizona, or I should say Kansas City, not bad as far as a consolation prize goes, as far as location right here.
Yeah, they not bad, but let's go right on to number 11 overall here. Griggs, how about the Zags?
I had them right around here. I'm surprised everybody else did. I didn't think they were as big on them. We had been critical about Gonzaga until about the middle of February. Ironically, it was after the LMU loss where I started to become impressed with how they were playing. Most years, I think people feel that Gonzaga is overvalued. I don't always agree, but I think that's the consensus. Now it's almost like people are feeling Gonzaga is undervalued, like at the rate that they're playing at the end of the year. This is a solid profile. A win over Alabama, the number 1 overall seed, a win over Xavier, who I'm guessing is going to be a protected seed. Both of those away from home. Michigan State also good. Not easy to win at BYU. Yeah, and when you look at just getting beyond the paper, how good they are offensively and how well that they've been playing in the last few weeks, I think they've been playing like a 3 seed.
Okay, just a quick note here. I didn't mention at the top of the show. These were brackets submitted going into play today on Monday, March 6th. So games are being played today, including Gonzaga's game coming up later tonight and St. Mary's going on right now. We're not factored into this bracket. Just wanted to throw that out there. So if Gonzaga gets upset late night tonight, you know, that wasn't in here. Titel,
It's written up there, Chad. You can read it right up there. We make a note of that.
Titel, UConn coming in on the 3 line as well.
Amazing how I would have, if you'd asked me a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I would have said Tennessee's like locked into one of these top 3 seeds. And now I think you correctly point out that they are going the wrong direction. Granted, when you have one of your best players injured, that doesn't help. UConn is certainly going in the right direction. Nice wins over Villanova on the road the other day by double digits. The metrics look great. The predictive metrics are amazing. So I don't know if that's guessing experts thinking they're going to win the Big East and stomp on Marquette and Xavier to get there. But I think those predictive metrics are a bit high. I think this is right around where I have them.
I have a
I-
quick observation about Connecticut. Their season has been a donut. By that I mean they started off 14-0, and then they went. Then they got to the whole of the donut where they lost 6 of 8, and then since going on that stretch where they've lost 6 of 8, they've been playing at about the same level that they were when they were 14-0. I just like my comparison to a donut.
I just want to throw out here. People may say, well, why isn't UConn in the East region and Gonzaga in the South here? Why can't UConn play in New York City? There was a region balance problem that we had that the only solution was to switch those 2 teams. Either way, Gonzaga is would have to travel a lot here. But so the UConn goal of getting to play in Madison Square Garden and in Albany, they got to move up at least one or two more spots in the seed list to get there. Or drop down a spot, actually.
Yeah.
They may make it better for them. But Dorman, number 13 overall, how about the Indiana Hoosiers?
I agree with the committee right here. I had them as the top spot on the 4 line. They got a big win over Michigan. I don't want to say it was the biggest game in the world, but it stopped. They didn't get a bad loss out of it. You can't afford, if you want to have one of these protected seeds, you can't lose at home to Michigan. They went to overtime, but they did get it done. So I agree. They are one of our 16 protected seeds as it sits today. Avoid their first game loss in the Big Ten tournament, and I think they will find themselves as a protected seed. And I really like this team. I think the coaching has been really, really strong, and they're getting better as we go to March.
Oh my God. I didn't realize Wisconsin was 12th.
There's that Big Ten tournament. But Titel, number 14 overall, coming in after Indiana. There's that Tennessee team we were just discussing.
It's tough to assess them with the injury because if you look at how they're going to be playing without Ziegler, the answer is not that great, although they did beat Arkansas, as everybody pointed out last week. Certainly have chances in the SEC tournament to impress, and you can circle that adjusted defensive efficiency because it is the best. And the predictive metrics are off the chart. But tough road ahead. What do we have here? There are 5 seeds, so they'll get a crappy opponent on Thursday, and then the old Missouri game on Friday, which is winnable. But I think Missouri is playing better than Tennessee these days. So that is a toughie.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Tennessee's 3 seed and 4 seed existence depends on their first 2 games, if there are 2 games in the SEC tournament. If they lose that South Carolina Ole Miss game, then I think they can maybe say goodbye to a protected seed, depending what others in this range do.
I agree, Joby. What if they lose to Missouri?
That I think it makes them slip to a 4, about where we have them.
Yeah, and it could be, how do they play? Do they get blown out by Missouri? Do they lose a close one?
Right.
Yeah,
very,
true.
very true. They're under a microscope for their tournament play. Stalika, your team will as well, more than most. I actually think conference tournaments are not evaluated by the committee as much as the normal fan thinks they are.
I agree with that. I don't want. I made
the
that
exception being teams that need to show something unique in a unique situation. Tennessee's facing that. Xavier's facing it.
Yeah. I made that my final thought.
And speaking of Xavier, Stalika, they are number 15 overall, our very next team.
I think the difference is for about a month or so, Xavier has shown that they can win without Fremantle. Now, winning a singular game like Seton Hall, probably not going to be too difficult. Trying to go back-to-back nights with a 7-man rotation at most, that's where it's going to get a little more dicey for the Musketeers. Fortunately, should they beat Seton Hall, what's going to happen is two of their most hard matchups, one of them is going to be eliminated because we're going to be looking at Creighton Villanova in one of the other quarterfinals right here. The only scenario where I could see the Musketeers losing a protected seed would be if DePaul somehow upsets Seton Hall and the Blue Demons beat Xavier again, which would mean another Q3 loss for the Musketeers.
Right. How nervous are you about having to potentially play DePaul again? Because that is not something Xavier's very good at.
Not as nervous as you would expect.
Joby, our last protected seed is your who's.
Playing a lot better since the second half of the North Carolina game. The defense basically it reminds me a lot of those Virginia games, teams from the early mid 2010s. The defense is back. It looks really good. Reese Beekman was named ACC Defensive Player of the Year today, and that was no fluke. They're starting to really look on the defensive end, but it's going to all depend on the shooting. And if the shooting comes like it did early in the season, then this team has a chance to go a really long way. If it doesn't, we could see a repeat of as a 4 seed losing to a hot 13.
Titel, anybody surprise you that we left out of the top 16?
No, I think we got it pretty solid. The most surprising thing I saw today was Reese Beekman named Defensive Player of the Year because Jesse Edwards was killing it all year for Syracuse, Joby. Come on.
Beekman,
but if a tree falls in the woods, and
ask Keontae George who the best defender he faced this year, Mr. Big 12. So
let's go on to the 5 line here. I'm going to pull up an entire line at a time as we go for the next for the rest of the bracket here. But Griggs, our 5 seeds are St. Mary's, Miami, Texas A&M, and TCU.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of them. I really like this Miami team. Have I made mention of that? I guess they only played Virginia once. Otherwise, it wouldn't be allowed. But
yes, but I want to note that is an allowable second round matchup. They only did play once. If they meet in the ACC tournament, this will become an illegal game. Go ahead.
Yeah. I really like how Texas A&M has been playing. I know a lot of people were questioning their backloaded conference schedule when they were racking up wins. The thing is they've continued to win now that they've gotten into the backload. So I'm convinced with them. I don't know if I even had them this high. I'm not like objecting to it. They are really good. And they're
how
playing
badly
really
does
well.
Uncle Buzz and his team want this rematch in the second round right here? Let's not forget this was the NIT championship last year between Xavier and A&M.
Oh, it was. I did forget that.
You're talking about our bracket here. Okay, the Texas A&M Xavier. Yes.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about the SEC tournament, but so
can we look at the SEC tournament again?
Let me pull the SEC tournament back up again.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's
A&M gets
the SEC tournament.
They have a tough road with the winner of Auburn, Arkansas being their first game, but they did get the 2 seed.
I think they can win that. I think they can win the. God, that would be a great game again if the Chalk holds and they get Kentucky or Vanderbilt.
All right, let's what other team here, Dorman, real quick? TCU on this line here, a team that was starting to fall, now maybe rising, now maybe falling again, but I still think a very dangerous team now that Miles is healthy.
Miles is healthy means the world to them. Yeah, I agree with you, Chad. Sometimes I get so high on this team, and then they throw out a clunker there, and then I get back on the board because they look unbelievable, and then they throw a clunker out of there.
Like losing at Oklahoma, yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, you got to get rid of those if you want to make a run to the Final Four. But I believe Jamie Dixon's team, they got big guys up front. They're strong. They're physical. They got the guard play in Miles. This team is not someone you want to run into if it's your bracket. They're dangerous. They could go to the Final Four if they get the right breaks. They would love this bracket because I think they feel they would have the Tennessee game with the injury, and then I don't think they're afraid of Purdue. They have guys up front that'll go against Edie. They would like this draw.
We're looking at a Big 12 fight for the Final Four in this bracket. My honest opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Titel, the 6th line is coming up now, including Arizona's potential second round opponent. But we've got Kentucky, Interesting, the same
Ooh.
region as UConn, Iowa State, San Diego State, and Northwestern on this line.
I like it. What do we got here? So I'm not afraid of the Cyclones. I probably should be because anybody plays better defense than Arizona this year, but I'm not. And UConn, Kentucky, I forget if they've met in a championship game before. I should know this, but I'm just not remembering
They
it.
did. It was the year that UConn was a 7 and Kentucky was an 8 and won.
That doesn't sound right. Okay.
Yeah, Kentucky
and
won,
UConn
was it
won, I
3 or
think?
4 games on
Yeah,
last second
UConn
shots?
single-handedly was carried in that game by Napier. So
Yeah, Chad showing the Iowa State defense. That is not good because I think Arizona's defense was 51, and I still think Chad is missing a digit from that because we've been atrocious the past couple weeks.
Yeah, as far as Iowa State goes, this was a team that was heading completely in the wrong direction until suddenly they win at Baylor to close out the regular season. So are they back? Is kind of the question because this was a protected seat for much of the season. Now in the 6th line.
And Baylor gets a rematch. They got Iowa State in their first game in the Big 12 tournament coming up.
Is Iowa State? You get teams like this every year, and we've seen it in the past to even bigger extremes. They're one of the more schizophrenic teams out there. How do you win at Baylor? Like that is a remarkably high quality win for a team that had just lost 9 of 12 or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm. Let's go to the 7 line. Stalika, we got Michigan State, Duke, Missouri, and Creighton. Your thoughts on, and did we get that 7 line right?
Feel like we're a couple years too late for the Marquette Duke rematch right here with Wojo now in the ESPN studio right here. Baylor Creighton is also a potentially interesting matchup right here. UCLA Missouri. It's been almost 30 years since we saw what Tyus Edney did out in Boise. In Texas, Michigan State should also be another instant classic should that come to fruition.
How about this Missouri team? I've kind of been on their side all season. A lot of you have not. I just think when you look at this resume, Joby, it is not a bad resume by any means.
I like Missouri. I mean, I had them on the 7 line.
Okay.
I'm with you, Chad. This is a deserving spot. I don't know, and with potential to move up to 6, depending on how they do in the SEC tournament. But the calcification of the lines are starting, and I think this is around where you'll find them. So, yeah, Chad, I love the win at Tennessee, for instance, when Tennessee was at full strength. That's a really nice win that just doesn't happen. A neutral court win against Illinois. That's really sweet. So this is a good team that doesn't get the respect. They probably didn't play as strong an out of conference schedule as they needed to on the top end, and that might be what's holding them back.
Well, where did you have them, Chad? I mean, I've kind of had them in the 7-8 range.
I think
all year.
I had them at the bottom of the 6th line, top of the 7.
Okay.
But it's
We're not that far apart.
I think you guys are starting to catch up to me on the Missouri profiles. That's what I was kind of going at here. Creighton and Duke on this line as well. Dorman, any thoughts on those 2 teams coming in here are the 7 seeds?
Right around where I had them. I think the committee is going to like Duke more than most people will be happy with. I think, I know.
They have a quality road win now, Griggs.
They have a dramatic level.
Yeah.
I think Duke is going to make you eat your words. I mean, seriously, they're
Really?
a good team. I think they win the ACC tournament.
That's what I was about to say. If they go to the ACC championship or win this tournament, starting this weekend, I think, like Joby just said, they can move up a seed line or 2. I just think the committee really likes Duke, as they always do. They're going to have a huge game against Miami if they can beat Pitt, and I think that could get them another a jump in the bracket.
I don't I don't think, whereas Chad is bigger on Missouri, I don't think people have caught up with me on Miami yet. I think Miami wins the tournament.
Well, we already had Miami in the field a couple of seed lines ago.
And David, I just have concerns over Miami's defense over a long series of games. They can win any single game, but I worry about them in a tournament setting. I really do.
I agree with you, Joby. Their guards are fantastic. They're not real big and they're not real physical up front. If they don't shoot well, they're going to be in trouble.
I think a full force. Remember that Virginia lost on a last second shot in Coral Gables
Yes.
when they matched up, and Reese Beekman was at 50%. And that if Reese Beekman's healthy, Virginia wins that game, and we're not even talking about a split ACC title.
Let's jump over the 8 line here. Titel, let me bring you back in. We've got Florida Atlantic, Iowa, Maryland, and
Alright.
Illinois. Big Big Ten line here.
You're going to reward our Owls by giving them an 8-9 game, which I think is right. And then they got to play Alabama and Birmingham. Thanks for nothing.
They're in the field.
But you also do get credit for the Purdue-Illinois rematch of a game that we just had that was fantastic.
Yep. Again, that's a permissible game because they only played once this season. If they do meet in the Big Ten tournament, that game would not be permissible. Griggs, I know you want to rant about Maryland. I don't think I want to let you. Joby, what about these other 3 teams here? Iowa, Maryland, Illinois, the 3 Big Ten
and
teams.
I think I'm a little higher on Iowa after the amazing Michigan State game. That's what we're all going to talk about. And yeah, I know I just ragged on Miami for defense, and Iowa's a carbon copy in a lot of ways to my complaints on Miami and soon to be NC State probably later in this field. But I think I like, away from home, Iowa's done well. I love the Indiana win because Indiana, besides that win, Indiana was cruising to a 3 seed. They're now it's 3 or 4 and all that. I think Iowa's the team to really watch here, at least as an 8 or 9. I don't know if I want to play him as a 1. I'm not saying Iowa's going to be in the Final Four, but I am saying Iowa has that puncher's chance to beat any, including Houston and Kansas, by the way, any of these 1 seeds.
I'll tell you, the team I do want to play from 1 seed, I think is Illinois. I don't like the way this team is playing right now. I know they beat UCLA and Texas back in November, December, but that's kind of all they've got at the top of that profile.
Can we peek at the Big Ten tournament again, real quick, Chad?
Sure.
Since it's sort of a Big Ten heavy.
Yeah, they get Penn State first, who they've lost to twice,
Okay.
and then they would get to move on to Northwestern in Chicago, which would be quite the scene at the United Center. But they need to beat Penn State. They go 0-3 against Penn State. I'm with you, Greg. It's trouble, and they could be moving down the bracket.
Right. My tongue is
needs that.
hold up. My tongue is bleeding right now, but I am biting it in regards to Maryland. But if they do not win their first conference tournament game, and I suspect that they may not if it's Nebraska, when will people finally start to realize that this team is a home? I'm not saying they don't belong in the field, but in the top half of the bracket.
All right, well, let's start with the bottom half of the bracket right now at Dorman, our 9 seeds, potential first-round matchups. We got West Virginia against FAU, Providence against Iowa, Arkansas against Maryland, and there's Memphis on the 9 line against Illinois.
I agree with the Memphis move. I thought they looked real good yesterday despite the loss. They were tough. They were physical. Penny Hardaway's got this team playing as well as they have at any point this season. When I look at those 8-9 seeds, these 1 seeds are not going to sleep well going to their first round, going to their first weekend site. There is plenty of firepower in these 8-9 games to knock off a 1 seed or 2 or 3.
Chad, I have a major issue here. If we are going to put Maryland on the 8 line and send them to Birmingham, and we're going to send West Virginia to Birmingham, then they need to be playing each other. And then Florida Atlantic needs Arkansas because that's a much more winnable game, I think.
As far as that West Virginia team here, Titel, this was a team that was hovering around the bubble for a while. Winning their last 2 games, I think, completely changed its profile.
Completely is a strong word, but they're certainly great wins. I mean, they were close, but they were wins, and they were against good teams, which is why they're in 9-13 versus the board. Strength of schedule is amazing. A little heavy on the luck in the 300s, but that still means that you're winning them. And if Texas Tech would get a little up there, they'd have only Tier 1 losses, which is something that not a ton of teams can say this year.
Well, if they lose to Texas Tech, in the opening round, maybe Texas Tech will move up there, so maybe they should lose the game.
That's
But-
fake. Remember fake Joe Lenardi from the old Skype days?
Yeah, but yeah, I guess my point here really on West Virginia is by going from 16-13 to 18-13, you can lose this Texas Tech team. I think this team is almost a lock at this point.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah. Let's take a look at the 10 seeds here. Stalika, potential first round opponents again. Michigan State gets USC, Duke gets Auburn, Missouri gets NC State, Creighton gets Pitt.
Auburn got a win that they desperately needed on Saturday against Tennessee right here. Has them a little more safely in the field right here. Pittsburgh, NC State, they've been sweating, it seems, for the past week and a half right here. If you look at their draw in the ACC tournament, I don't think there's any matchup that could be fatal wounds for them, but they're certainly going to be hovering around the 10 or 11 line should they slip up early right here. Pittsburgh, you definitely don't want to be slipping up against Florida State or Georgia Tech. NC State, if they were to lose to Virginia Tech, for example.
Yeah. Let me. I want to throw it over to our ACC guy here, Joby.
This is a good profile.
I like Pitt profile a whole heck of a lot more than NC State, and I would argue that if NC State slips up against like a Notre Dame, they're going to be sweating.
I think they will be. I think Pitt, though. I think Pitt's not out of the woods because if they lose their opening game against I can't remember who the exact matchup is. Georgia Tech, hypothetically, or Florida State. Pitt and NC State need to win their opening round games. Not saying they're out if they don't, but if all of a sudden you have a lot of bid thieves, they're the perfect teams to be picked out.
Okay,
agreed. I agree.
They're in the Florida Atlantic. Please win Conference USA crowd.
Okay, look at this profile. No one on the bubble is anywhere close to this good. I don't know what the combined home records are for Northwestern, NC State, and North Carolina, but it's somewhere around really good. And if we're going to say that Duke got a quality road win at North Carolina, which it was, then so did Pitt. And oh, by the way, they've got two more that are even better than that. They won at Syracuse. That's pretty decent. Miami, while at home, still a good win. I don't understand what people don't like about Pitt. I mean, I think they should be substantial, like a couple lines higher than this.
Tytel, your thoughts on the Pitt team? Is there a response to Griggs?
Always. I mean, I think that last year, if you lose at Notre Dame and to Florida State by 7 each, you are great. Sadly, this is this year, not last year. And look at all those like tier 2 losses by the hair of their chinny chin chin, like so close. I understand they got tier 1. And mostly tier 2 losses. With some tier 2s, it could become tier 1. Just, I think too much bad rather than not enough good.
Okay, what about we don't? Iowa has some losses that smell even worse than that, and we have Iowa 2 lines higher.
For the 10th time, Iowa's lost to the worst team in the nation earlier this year was with not 1 but 2 injured starters. I understand it was a loss, but they had not 1 but 2 injured starters.
Real quick, Doreen, we have USC in this line as well. This team got the win they needed at home against Arizona State, I think, to vault them up real close to being in the field here.
I agree with that, but I think they're as Joby just said, let's hope there's not many bid stealers, because a win against Arizona State at home, all of a sudden that's so great. Yeah, I would. They're going to probably play them again on Thursday, the late night in Vegas. So I would recommend they win if they don't want to have a long Sunday afternoon, because they'll be sweating if they decide to lose to Arizona State. I think they're on the good side of the bubble, and I still think they get in with the loss, but they'll be much more comfortable Sunday if they win that game.
All right. Joby, I'm going to reveal our first 2 11 seeds. Just 2 of them.
You're doing it just for me. Oh, okay.
No, well, one of them for you and one of them for myself here. Rutgers, which I don't agree with you guys. I would have had them lower than
I like
this.
Rutgers at the all right. There are a lot of Big Ten teams. Rutgers has the wins that win at Purdue is a big deal, as pointed out by the blind resume. I think Rutgers is inside the bubble there, as deserving as anyone. Boise State got the win against San Diego State at home. That's the big deal here, and they have a win, the neutral win when Texas A&M sucked. This is purely an eye test thing for me with Boise State. Of the Mountain West teams that are competing for these spots, I'm not going to rag on the whole conference like I usually do. Boise State looks like absolute trash. They will get killed. And that is by they are not as good as Nevada. I won't compare them outside the conference. They're not as good as Utah State.
Beat Utah State.
And I just, at home, way to go.
True.
And they did boat racing, but I've seen this team play a dozen times. It's not, I purposefully go out of my way to watch these teams so I can talk intelligently. And Boise State just doesn't have the overall system to do anything. I mean, they will lose their first round game and they will get in. And because of the San Diego State win, which is a win, A&M is now a top half of the bracket win, and Utah State's competing for one of those last spots. So resume wise, I get it. I 100% get it. I'm going purely off eye test here. I am not a believer.
Yeah, the first game could be UNLV,
Sorry.
which would be basically a road game. But sorry, Dorman, go ahead.
Yeah. Joby, do you have Nevada ahead of Boise State today?
I did. Yes.
Thank you.
No, I had Boise State ahead. Yes, I had Nevada ahead of Boise State. And
Let's
that's
go.
a purely eye test thing. I get it. And it's my opinion. So
Stalika.
I'm on the minority on that one.
Stalika, our first two 11 seeds coming to the West region here. San Diego State's potential first round opponent is the winner of a Mississippi State Penn State game. There is that Penn State team that we highlighted at the top of the show as well getting in.
Yeah, Penn State is also a team that's getting hot at the right time. And
Yeah,
had they been able to hold off Rutgers at home, they'd be a little more safely in the field right here. Personally, I would have thought Mississippi State could have potentially been a little bit higher, but all they really have as far as the notable wins are the 4 tier ones where they win at Arkansas, nice. Win it against Marquette in the preseason tournament, also nice, and also getting some clutch wins against A&M and TCU at home.
Missouri home win as well. If we're going to count home wins, don't forget that one. But Titel, you've been high on Mississippi State all season. Is this too low putting them in the first four?
No, I think this is pretty good. I'm a big Chris Jans fan, so I might be a little biased, but the only thing I don't love about the profile is I can live with some of the tier 2 and tier 3 losses because they were all single digits and all against solid teams, if not good teams. The non-conference strength of schedule is terrible, but the thing I like about this matchup possibly is you get the Bulldogs on the left, number 8 in the nation in defense, and the Nittany Lions on the right, number 17 in offense. So a nice thing of strength on strength.
Let's go ahead and reveal our final first four matchups. I guess we're up to you, Griggs. Nevada and Oklahoma State. There is that Nevada team we just mentioned did get in.
Well, if Nevada's dead, if these two teams are getting in, I think this is about where they would land. I'm not particularly high on either one of them, but I realize that it is a 68 team field, and maybe they smell bad, but not as bad as anybody else that we took out. I think Oklahoma State needs to beat Oklahoma. They certainly had been playing at a level that indicated that they were a tournament team before they really just started getting blown out of the water. I don't think they'll beat Texas. Is beating Oklahoma, is getting one more win against a team that isn't really near the field enough to stabilize them and get them in. I don't know.
The difference is that you're going to take one more loss here if you need a
Right,
large
yeah.
bid. I'd rather take it against Texas than Oklahoma.
Yeah, and that might be enough. And if it is, then this is about where they're going to be. Nevada, I don't think anyone should be penalized for not beating Tim Miles.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move right on here.
They did beat Tim Miles on the road. They didn't lose. They didn't lose. To
Well,
Tim
that's why they're in the field.
Doesn't count.
Miles.
Ty,
But here's the difference for Oklahoma State, real quick. I'll say is if they lose to Oklahoma, they're now only 2 games above 500. It gets really dicey at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what if you're 18-15? You beat Oklahoma, you lose to Texas. I think that's last team in, first team out type of situation, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the top. Before we go on to the rest of the bracket, going to reveal the top 4 teams out here. Titel, they were in order: Arizona State, Wisconsin, Utah State, and Michigan. Is there a case you want to make for any of these 4 teams that they should really be in? I know not the first one.
That's who I think should
Correct.
be in.
And not Michigan yet, but again, the reason that it's good to be a power conference team now is you have chances in the week ahead. I've seen a lot of hype for Utah State just with the gaudy record. I know that they do have a lot of crud, as our good friend likes to say, but even if Joby doesn't like their competition in the conference tourney, the fact is they're going to play teams who are already on the board at some point, and if they beat them, then I think that will really, really, really help their resume. As far as the Devils, beating the Beavers ain't going to help. If they can beat my Cats or the Bruins, it's a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, before I go any further, Utah State, I've got to scroll down a little bit here because it actually is so far down off the screen there. They do have 2 Tier 4 losses. Let's not forget those. If the
Right.
committee uses my workbook, they may. But
Yeah.
Lose to San Jose State, dear Utah State. Don't lose to San Jose State.
oh, Mike! Hey, Mike has just joined us. Mike, I didn't even see a slip in there.
I just got in about 3 minutes ago. Don't lose to San Jose State.
No, well, I mean,
Well,
they're
well,
going to
and
lose.
look at the number. Look at the wins against the field that Utah State has really racked up. That's just a commanding group. Oral Roberts,
I don't
ironically, is maybe the most impressive of those.
Right.
Did
Well,
they beat
look at
San Diego
Arizona.
State? No, they didn't beat
One
San Diego.
tier 1 win against a conference mate at home. I don't think Utah State's getting in without a major run in Vegas this weekend.
And
What did they?
I
What did
might
they beat?
add,
What did they beat
fake
San Diego
tier
State?
one win
Are
because
they
you're
in?
telling me Boise's 27. Yeah, if
Utah
Boise
State
was
beat San Diego
31, it's
State
not
in the
tier one.
semis. Do they get in?
I'm with you, Joby.
Yeah.
Okay,
I-
hold
you
on a
think-
second. Let's go one at a time here because we're talking over each other at this
Sorry.
point. But yeah, if we want to look at Utah State to beat San Diego State, first of all, Mike would have to be in the finals, so they definitely would be if they beat San Diego
What?
State. I'll give you that.
Oh, wait a minute. Utah State's a 3 or 4. I can't
Three
remember.
is the three,
Three.
they're the 3 seed.
Oh,
uh,
so they play New Mexico. Don't lose to New Mexico. That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
But look,
Well, one more. Let's look at Arizona State here.
okay, I got Arizona State out. Let's pull up one of the other Big Ten teams here also with them because we've just beat Utah State to death. Go ahead, Griggs. Michigan also.
Okay. Well, I really like the win at Arizona. I think that is exceptionally good. And Creighton, who's way up the seed list, is good. I think that this outperforms Utah State and probably Mississippi State too. And if you scroll up some and you get the Texas Southern loss off of there like you did for Utah State, I think that they're in. But as far as sort of the last, when you're looking at the last 4, like when you're looking at 4 or 5 teams for the last 2 spots, I kind of like Arizona State.
Okay, well, they got work to do in the Pac-12 tournament. They definitely can't lose to Oregon State. But Mike, since you're here and you're a Big Ten guy, the other 2 teams that our first 4 out were Michigan and Wisconsin. Tough now. The Wolverines losing 2 in a row, and what a huge game against my Scarlet Knights to start their Big Ten tournament.
Yeah, if Rutgers loses, they could still get in, but I know if Michigan loses, they definitely will not get in. Michigan's got to definitely win Thursday and probably need to beat Purdue on Friday to get in. They've got their work cut out for them.
And how about this Wisconsin team, Dorman? They've got to play in the opening round, yet they're still on the board.
Yeah, they're on the board, but they got to make a big run in Chicago this weekend. I believe it's Ohio. Yeah, there it is. Ohio State first. You got to beat Iowa. I think you might have to beat Michigan State. I think you need 3 wins in Chicago this weekend, Wisconsin, to get back on the good side of the bubble, and that's gonna take a lot. I just don't think this Wisconsin team with the eye test is all that good. They were playing with their food last night in Minnesota. They wanted to keep them in the game, and it's not one of Wisconsin's better teams, and I just don't think they'll be in the field this year.
Okay, let's take a look at the other teams that did get some consideration. Votes not to necessarily be in the field, but at least be among the top 55 teams of the nation. Clemson, North Carolina, North Texas, Oregon, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, Seton Hall, Texas Tech, Washington State. That was our friend Brian Black, who I think was listening to Bill Walton the other night to say that Washington State belonged in the field. But Title, I want to ask about 2 teams on this list here: Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. And maybe I'll start with Oklahoma with you because you've been kind of driving this maybe Oklahoma can get an at-large bid despite being a game under 500 thing.
I might be the only driver and passenger in the vehicle, Chad. Some people on this call are not a fan of, or at least don't completely understand it, and I get it. Like, they have a losing record. There's no hiding that. What I do like is a few different things. Number one, like the schedule is insane. Number two, the quad one wins are fantastic. There's a lot of them, and some of them are very good against they beat Alabama by 24. Let's just say it. Number three, most of their losses are tier one, and the tier twos could end up bumping up, and they're all pretty respectable. I understand that if they finish 15-17 by bombing out in Bedlam Part 3 on Wednesday, then they're dead and done, and I get it. So this is more of a predictive pick, but that's where I stand.
But don't they have to beat Texas and maybe even make the finals after that, even to really?
Probably, if you go back to their results against Texas, you'll see, drum roll please, is
They
that
lost
they
by
lost
1 and
by
2
1
points, you
point
told
and
me
they
in the
lost in
email.
overtime by 2 points. So the fact that they can hang with the Longhorns gives me some glimpse of hope, just a tad, but it exists.
They lost to Texas by a total of 3 points.
That is 1 + 2. Thank you.
Mike, I got you. I got Vanderbilt up there on the left here, and it's just like I've not been able to cross this Vanderbilt team off my list all season, and they just now they've won 3 in a row, including they got that win at Kentucky. How about the Commodores? Even though they now have lost their best player, despite that, even they went ahead and beat Mississippi State at home on over the weekend.
Yeah, that's why I put Vanderbilt on my top 55 board, and I have to give out a shout out. First of all, give out a shout out to Titel. I didn't have a 50-55 team. I put Oklahoma in there. So, but yeah, I mean Vanderbilt, they've come from nowhere to at least being under consideration. They definitely have to win their first game against the LSU Georgia winner. They've got to make serious noise in the SEC to get serious consideration. But they're definitely in the running. Then they would be in line to face Kentucky. They definitely have to win that game, and who knows what can happen. I mean,
hey, if Vanderbilt is playing on Sunday, Griggs, they might be in.
I think they are. If they're playing on Sunday, I think they're in. You're talking about beating Kentucky and most likely A&M, and I think that gets them in.
Let me caution you, though. Texas A&M did play on Sunday last year and ended up not getting in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and reveal the rest of the field. Start with the 12 life. Well, first of all, before I get there, also one team we have not discussed is playing right now and actually in a tough game, and that's College of Charleston. They are now, especially with Hofstra's loss tonight, our auto bid winner here, but they're a team that could get interesting consideration, especially if they win tonight and they lose tomorrow to UNC Wilmington in the Colonial Final. But
where were they? I guess they were obviously below they would have outside the bubble. Yeah,
they would have actually been ranked in between Clemson and North Carolina in the also considered. So our second also considered. But here's Charleston, who gets St. Mary's, Oral Roberts, Drake, and VCU on this line, and VCU, TCU, all capital letters matchup. But let's put this Charleston profile up real quick, Griggs. You have some comments on them?
Yeah,
you don't have to. I'll go with somebody else.
Well, I'm surprised you went to me and not Titel. But if you want my own opinion, I don't think the committee selects them. I could make a case if I had to. I just don't think it's good enough. As it turns out, Virginia Tech is not a good road team. So while that looked really good at the time, it probably isn't. I think we got kind of excited when they were into the game, even though it was a loss with North Carolina, but it turns out maybe that wasn't that special either. I think the loss to Drexel, maybe without that they're in there, but the committee in the past, when we've seen teams with bloated records that did it primarily against teams outside the top 100, they usually don't get in or do. I do want to say that
Stephen F. did not.
Yes, they were a little bit worse. Stephen F. Austin. I will say that there was one year where Davidson did not have a single top 100 win, but was still seeded 10th. Well, so I guess there is precedence for selection. Ask Titel.
That's what I'm saying. Greg's you're cut off. Titel, you've actually been watching the Charleston. You've been at the Colonial tournament most of the last couple of days here. And how about this team? If they find a way to beat Towson tonight, they said there were 30 wins. They're not going to have the loss to Hofstra, but a UNC Wilmington, a slightly worse loss in the finals.
Couple things. One, I have no doubt that they're one of the best 68 teams in the country, which is not necessarily the purpose of our exercise, but they should make it. Secondly, if you want to try to find a 30-win team that hasn't made it, good luck, because 30-win teams always make it. Third, as you see on the left there, they had an 8-point win over Towson at home back a couple weeks ago. So Towson is not scared of them at all. But I really think that they'll pull this out. If they don't, sure, you can make arguments that a team with a strength of schedule of 340
Yeah.
who didn't even make their conference title game, I hear it, but I'm telling you, like, they should make it, and I think they're going to make it.
Okay, let's jump to the rest of the field. The 13 line. We've got we've got Toledo going up against Indiana. Sam Houston as the one seed in the WAC is our presumed winner of that conference tournament. They get Virginia. Yale against Xavier, Louisiana against Tennessee. Congrats to the Raging Cajuns, Sun Belt champions this evening.
It was a dogfight too.
On the 14 line here, we've got Furman, our SoCon
Furman.
champions, getting
First
their
time
revenge.
Ten.
Getting their revenge tonight from what
First time in
happened in
43
the heartbreak last year against Chattanooga. UC Irvine's Arizona's first round opponent. Iona and Kennesaw State, the Owls, in for the first time ever.
How
A
far is
Sun
it?
champion.
8-10
Who-
fall? Oh my
Far.
God.
VCU was on the 12 line. They
Oh,
were
12
there.
line. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. VCU was on the 12 line with that VCU TCU all capital letter matchup. On the 15 line, we've got Montana State, who is now our presumed winner of the Big Sky after Eastern Washington got upset last night. UNC Asheville, congrats, the Big South champions. Colgate and Vermont. And the 16 line, let's finish off the field here. Alabama gets Alcorn State. Kansas gets the winner of a Howard Corpus Christi game. Houston gets Northern Kentucky.
No!
The last minute adjustments right before one of the show here. NKU actually three-way tie for second place in the conference is in the title game in the horizon. So we're going to give them the spot for now. Purdue gets the winner of a SEMO Fairleigh Dickinson game. Pair of automatic bids already clinched with those two teams.
I'm gonna get the game replayed. The voting machines were rigged. It should have been the Penguins.
All I want to do is go through each of you for any other thoughts you have on what we did or anything else about college basketball. And Sleeka, let me start with you.
So UNC actually does make the field. The only problem is we have to add the suffix Asheville to make this work right here. But as far as North Carolina goes, they're definitely going to have to win their opener. They're going to have to beat Virginia. And even then, you're probably looking at least one more win for the Tar Heels to probably feel like they're going to be safely in right here. Now, granted, win against another bubble team like Clemson or NC State might be the difference maker. So I would not write the Tar Heels off just yet.
It is interesting. We could have a North Carolina Clemson ACC semifinal, two teams that are in our also considereds right now. It's possible. Joby.
There's a expression that Jerry Palm, CBS bracketologist, uses that seems on its face to be factual, but I have found over application that it's not. And he has said teams get bids, conferences don't, except for the auto. You know, in other words, you don't say when you're dealing with the at-large pool, it's not like they're just going to look at the Big Ten teams. And if there are 4 Big Ten teams ahead of the others in the bubble, that's just the way it goes. I disagree. I think that they actually divide up, especially when there are multiple teams from a conference at the tail end of the field. I think it gets divvied up a little more evenly. And so what that means is look at our board. The Big Ten is squarely in that. You have 2 teams just out, 2 teams just in. Mountain West, same thing. 2 teams just in, 1 team just out. If the ACC, if Pitt and NC State lose, you're going to have, that same dynamic occur at the ACC. You are competing. If you are a fan of one of these bubble teams, I truly believe for instance, Chad, You don't want to see Mike's team win, and Mike, you don't want to see Chad's team, vice versa. Regardless of playing each other, it's a case of you don't want to see these teams advance because they could. Is more likely for them to take your spot than to take a Mountain West team spot, or an ACC team spot. So always remember when you're going into that it's not always true that teams get bid, conferences done.
Kind of
Fair
follow
point.
up on Joby's points. Bubba Cunningham is going to be a master lobbyist if North Carolina manages to get in the field this year.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
they're
Bubba Cunningham, on that note, John, I think you're exactly right. I think that is why do not hesitate. I guarantee he will be lobbying hard for Virginia, where his team has a win, and Duke, where he has 2 close losses. I bet you that those teams will be seated on the high end of where our projections are, so that when he leaves the room, it looks better. Because he showed
Yep.
last year, he got teams.
Okay. All right. Let's Mike, you're up next.
Yeah, I think to piggyback on Joby, it's like when you watch the selection show, look to see where, like for me at Big Ten, I look to see where the Big Ten teams are seated, because early on, if they're seated low, that's a red flag for the bubble teams. But on conversely, if your conference teams are seated high, that can bode well for a bubble team. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on for Selection Sunday. And we're gonna have a lot of de facto elimination games coming up. I mean, you win, you have a chance, you're out, you lose, you're out. So it's I think this is the best week of the year for college basketball fans, rather than the tournament itself. It's the conference championship week.
I agree completely. Titel.
3 quick notes now that we have some auto bid teams to talk about. We see Kennesaw State on the right. Congrats to the Owls. I thought we were only going to get 1 Owls team this year, but hopefully we're going to get 2. First tourney they've ever made. Secondly, Furman over on the left just made it. And to give you an idea of how long it's been for them, 1980, they faced Tennessee that year. And the big man who had 8 rebounds for the Volunteers was retired pro wrestler Kevin Nash, who checked in at 6'10" for all you fans. And lastly, in the upper right corner, we see SEMO against Fairleigh Dickinson in the 16 versus 16 first 4 game. I'm supposed to interview Coach Brad Korn tomorrow. And one of the things I'm going to ask him was about his coach during his senior year when he played at Southern Illinois. It's a guy named Matt Painter, who would be his opponent with Purdue if they beat Fairleigh Dickinson.
There we go.
Very
Dorman.
cool. Quickly, I wouldn't want to be a 5 seed in this tournament because these 12 seeds are awfully strong and any of them can win. I love this weekend, and this week is much or more than anyone, but the committee has shown us year after year after year, we all as fans and bracketologists overrate it. They always say, oh, we had the rigmarole, we had 26 brackets, and we've seen Sunday is basically meaningless. And we've seen a lot of moves, teams that get hot, and we think they're going from a 7 seed to a 4, and it just doesn't ever seem to play out like that. So don't overrate this weekend too much. There's definitely elimination games, no doubt, but I just think that I always get excited and think this team's going up or this team's done. And the committee has shown us they don't take conference championship, the tournaments, into play as much as we all think and would like.
Yeah, I think so as well. Greg, do you want to finish us off?
Yeah, the biggest thing I would do here is I would probably flip Pitt and Maryland. As far as the seed lines go, as far as changes go, I don't know. Some of the other stuff, the committee is fluid. Like the points of emphasis from year to year, they don't really change, but sometimes what's emphasized more than others is just depending on what a committee values. And that's not just a selection committee, it's a hiring committee, it's a rules committee, it's anything. And I think one of the things I've learned from doing the exercise with you all is that a lot of the categorical things that a lot of bracketologists look at don't necessarily come into play. You can do that and you can land on you can get pretty close to the same results, but I don't think it's like so many teams from from so many conferences, or if you have the net it means this, or if you do this in the conference tournament it means that. conference tournaments, I think they look at them and just say, does it really change the complexion of a resume? If Memphis goes out and beats Houston, that changes their resume. But if you're repeating something that you've already done, I don't think that they substantially move you up. I
Well,
agree
so,
with
so, so
that.
so if you say nothing categorical, Griggs, then categorically not having any top 2 tier road wins is something you want to discard now because you're getting
Uh,
rid of categories.
No, that's
I
not
got,
categorical. That's
yeah,
just
I
not
think that is
good on the road.
categorical. That's
No, that's
categorically
bad on the road.
why you don't like a very good
that
Maryland
is
team.
objectively just bad on the road. Well, categorically, if you're not in the top 300, I mean, let's not.
You're muted. You're gone. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We will be back later this evening with the Championship Week video notebook. Video notebook's coming up the rest of the week as well. We'll have updates on our mock committee and everything, so keep an eye on the website. Tytel's going to be releasing his bracket daily, I believe, correct?
You got
And, but on behalf of John Sleeka and David Dorman up here, Tytel in the center square, Joby Fortson and Mike Chod to his sides, David Griggs down there on mute and locked in the puppet bunker. I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. Talk to you again very soon.